westward expansion of the United States into the territory west of the Mississippi River began with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. At that time, President Thomas Jefferson nearly doubled the size of the nation by negotiating with France, who had previously laid claim to the territory, to buy more than 800,000 square miles for a price of $15 million. This vast area would eventually include all or parts of 14 states. The very next year, President Jefferson sent an expedition led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore this large region. Called the Corps of Discovery, the 3-year journey produced a new understanding of the geography and resources of the western part of the continent. Before the Louisiana Purchase, European immigrants did not stretch far beyond the eastern seaboard, choosing to remain close to their supply lines. Despite some continuous push westward, it was not until the conclusion of the War of 1812 that the westward movement became a significant outpouring of people across the continent. By 1830, the Old Northwest and Old Southwest, which were scarcely populated before the war, began to be settled, and before long, the states of Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Alabama, and Mississippi were admitted to the Union. At the same time, the idea of manifest destiny, a phrase coined by a newspaperman, was beginning to take shape. This concept envisioned the United States expanding across the entire continent. Soon, Americans began to buy into the inevitability of settling unexplored western frontiers, first moving into places such as Michigan, Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Ohio. In the 1840s and 50s, the nation expanded quickly, and in the span of just 5 years, the United States increased its size by a third. During this time, the country annexed Texas, negotiated with Britain for half of the Oregon country, and acquired more land in the Mexican-American War, which would become the states of California, Nevada, Utah, parts of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming. People then began to move in numbers to the Great West. The California Gold Rush, the construction of the railroads, the Mormons' long pilgrimage to Utah, and the blazing of the Santa Fe and Oregon trails all contributed to the expansion. Between the California Gold Rush and the Civil War, Americans in growing numbers filled the Mississippi River Valley, the Southwest Territories, and the new states of Kansas and Nebraska. During the war, gold and silver discoveries drew prospectors, and later settlers, into Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Idaho, and Montana. But the most rapid migration occurred after the Civil War. One factor in encouraging settlers to move west was the Homestead Act, passed in 1862, which allowed settlers to claim 160 acres of land for free. After filing for an application, the homesteader was required to improve the land, and after 5 years could apply for the deed. Another important factor was the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in 1869. After 6 years of hard labor, the tracks were connected between Iowa and California, linking the existing Eastern Railroad network from the Atlantic to the Pacific coasts for the first time. Though these changes were very exciting for settlers heading west, seeking land and opportunity, it had serious consequences for Native Americans. Continental expansion meant the occupation and annexation of their homelands, and dramatic changes to their traditions and lifestyles. Through numerous treaties and frequent Indian wars, the government, in the end, took over the vast majority of Indian lands and removed the first peoples to reservations. By 1870, only portions of the Great Plains could truly be called unsettled, and most of the buffalo, for which the Indians depended on, had been killed. For most of the next 2 decades, the plains became the fabled open range, home to cowboys and their grazing cattle. However, by the late 1880s, yet more settlers moved in and fenced the Great Plains into family farms. The continued settlement and the wild rush of pioneers into the Oklahoma Indian Territory constituted the last chapter of the Westward movement. By the early 1890s, the frontier had ceased to exist within the continental United States. What's left of the Old West today are ghost towns, artifacts in museums, and a very few old-timers that continue to practice the ways of the past. However, history lives on in the hundreds of fascinating tales of westward expansion, the trials and tribulations of tens of thousands of people who braved the frontier, the Native Americans who suffered through manifest destiny, and the biographies, notes, and memoirs of hundreds of interesting characters who lived during these adventurous times. To see these many tales, actual historic accounts, more educational videos, and thousands of photographs and paintings, please stop on by and visit Legends of America. You can find us at www.legendsofamerica.com.